Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and I'm here with my co-host, Elliot Margolis, and we're very pleased to have with us tonight the three candidates for City Councilor at Large, Matt St. Hilaire, Paul Guanci, and Jason Silva. So I guess the first question is that since there's only three of you running for three slots, there's a possibility you all get the same vote. So what do you do to pick out who gets to be president? You're going to rotate it?
Do you want me to take that one? Yeah.
Paul can have it.
Well, that's. I mean, that's an interesting subject because that's what you would think. There's only three on the ballot, but I think the top of the ballot says you can vote for up to three. So I'm sure that there are people out there that may not want to vote for me, or may not want to vote for Matt, or they may not want to vote for Jason, or vote for a combination of any two. So that's what would make it interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll work out so you don't have to have a free-for-all before the
right. But I would have no problem sharing the gavel with either two of these gentlemen.
A little more seriously, what do you think of the three problems that are facing the city right now, and how's the city council going to help work them out? Jason, you want to start?
Could you clarify the question? What
are the three big issues facing the city right now?
Okay. I think the first one, my focus generally is always on finances, so I think it's always about how we can make sure that we have a financial model that's sustainable, stable, and responsible. With that, I think property taxes fall into that category. So I see finances and property taxes as the major issue facing the city. I also think that you can't do anything fun without a strong framework.
A couple of weeks ago, we had the mayor join us for one of these sessions, and he was mentioning that some of this unfunded liability is going to start to come due. What do you think is that going to do to the flexibility of the city government?
In terms of benefits and retirement?
Yeah, the benefits between the retirement pay and the benefits for the retirees. There's two separate categories,
yeah,
I guess.
That's always a struggle. We have OPEB, we have retirement, we have health insurance. It's always a struggle to balance that with the general operations of the city, the bonding and the borrowing that we do. So balancing that annually, I mean, it's not just out in 10 years. It's this year, it's next year, it's the year after. It's a constant struggle to balance that with the impacts it has on the average homeowner.
But it's nice, if I can jump in, it's
Please.
nice that we've already, working with the mayor's finance director, Brian Ailes, and the mayor himself, we're already in the process of setting up some stabilization funds, setting money aside. Hopefully that will grow to help out with those long-term liabilities.
Certainly.
It's a start.
And I would just add, George, I think the last 2 years there have been three big issues we've been focused on. One is the waterfront, and the next is the middle school. And I think the third big project was the Brimble Ave project. That was a big issue hanging out there. And I think over the last couple of years, those issues have been sort of brought to the next stage. And moving forward, I really see the biggest issue is fiscal responsibility, making sure that as we pay for the new middle school project, that we are keeping the taxpayers in mind and making sure that our spending decisions are in line with our priorities.
Speaking of the waterfront, how many more years is it going to be before something is done with the McDonald's building? I know when my father was a kid, and he's 96 now, they were talking about building the bridge. Well, they finally got the bridge built after about 50 years. Is it going to take that long to do McDonald's?
I hope not. It's funny you say that because I remember sitting at my first debate being nervous and my knees shaking, and the old professional Bill Coughlin sitting next to me, and he asked me a question about the waterfront. And I said, okay, that's what we're going to run on. We're going to see how we can improve the waterfront. I mean, we've done a few things structurally there, improved the buildings, improved public access. But now we're poised where we lifted the designated port authority so that now there are certain types of businesses that can go there that couldn't before. The McDonald's building, as you know, just went out to bid again, and the city didn't get back an acceptable a bid yet. I think that it's going to take a little time, hopefully within the next calendar year. I think it's real important to note that now that you have, for years, there's been a contentious nature there between the neighbors and the city-owned property. That seems to be gone now. So I think things should move smoother. And I'm sure Michael Cahill will focus that on that this term if he's reelected.
And if I could just jump in, I share your frustration. I remember going to McDonald's as a young kid, and it's been sitting there ever since and been vacant. That's a key entranceway to our city. And I would stress and follow up to what Paul said. I think we've made monumental progress over the last 2 years. I think lifting the DPA, rezoning the harborfront, I think we are poised to have a restaurant hopefully down there and to redevelop that whole area over the next several years.
Any thoughts on solution for parking if we get a restaurant in that area? This seems to have been the hang up on the Black Cow, that they wanted more tables than they could have parking space for.
I don't have a solution. I think that is a huge issue, though, and one that needs to be addressed. And I think working together with the mayor and our colleagues here on the council and in the neighborhood, I think we need to figure out how we're going to do that.
Well, the other option is there something else besides a restaurant that would be attractive that could fit into the space available?
But I think the parking is a struggle throughout the downtown, not just on the waterfront. And as we see growth and investment, even in the downtown, we're seeing the push and pull between residents who live in proximity to downtown with the business community that is starting to come back to downtown. And I think the same is going to be said at the waterfront, and we need to make sure to balance that. But I'd prefer to have a parking problem downtown in the waterfront, meaning I'd rather have people down there visiting the waterfront at a restaurant, at a waterfront restaurant, and have to manage that problem instead of the situation we're in now. So I look forward to the opportunity to manage that. I wouldn't look at it as a hindrance.
Well, the city does have 2 parking lots across the street next to the anchor that the former mayor put before the council, and we authorized him to purchase with that in mind, that would be parking for some enterprise that would be at the waterfront. And now we do have the garage just a couple hundred yards up the street from the waterfront, which would come into play.
Right.
And to follow up on your question, George, I do think the people of Beverly do want a restaurant on the waterfront. I don't think that has to be the entire solution, but I think it needs to be part of the vision.
Okay.
Well, I think that we're the only seaside community, maybe in Massachusetts, that you can't go and sit and have dinner and a drink on the waterfront, look out and see the ocean.
Yeah.
And the goals of the rezoning that we just passed wasn't just bring a restaurant to the waterfront. It was to implement an entire vision for the waterfront, which included restaurant use, but also retail.
Yeah, could you elaborate on what was in that zoning?
So it was basically to encourage mixed-use development down in the waterfront with a height restriction of 3 stories. I believe active uses on both the water side and the street side, going down on Water Street.
There's been
I
some
still
talk.
think a replica of the ship Hannah on Glover's Wharf makes a hell of a lot of sense if Beverly is, in fact, the birthplace of the American Navy, which we say we are. But you wouldn't know it. Why not?
I know, that makes me think of Jack Murray. That was always his goal when he was the Ward 6 councilor, that there was that organization, Washington's Naval Base, that had a little steam in the early 2000s, but then petered off when some of the members passed away. Well, you say, Jason spends a lot of time in Salem, and you see the friendship there. You say to yourself, well, why can't we have something like that in Beverly?
Let's start with the restaurant, and then we can work on the ship. How's that?
Actually, the ship would come before the restaurant because you put the ship there, and then people are going to come see the ship and go to the restaurant.
Okay. And you're going to donate.
I think there are a lot of possibilities.
Well, that's the thing, is we got a lot of capability in the city. It's a great opportunity. And it's just, how do we get beyond, gee, that'd be nice to do,
Right.
to, I want to have the lunch tomorrow, can we give me a reservation?
Just to reiterate what Matt said, though, the progress made in the last 2 years has been more than I think has been made in a long, long
Sure.
time.
Oh, yeah.
And that site, the McDonald's site, at first glance, it looks like a really attractive, obvious site for investment, but you know, it's not the largest site. There are parking problems. We're not selling it. We want to enter into a long-term lease. So we're asking someone to come in, invest a lot of money, multi-million dollars, into a site that ultimately they don't own either. So it is a tricky deal to put into place. And I know the mayor and the administration has worked very hard on it. There's been, like I said, a lot of progress there. I think ultimately we're going to have a great thing down there.
And it really falls into, you have to give credit to the mayor's new planning director, Aaron Clausen. While it's only natural to miss people that were at City Hall for a long time, the mayor's made some really solid hires, with Aaron being one of them. And when he took the job in January of 2014, that was one of the things that he focused on. I think he's a Newburyport resident. He worked in Lowell, so he's got a little experience with waterfronts, and he's really taken the bull by the horns.
A few years ago, you guys voted for the CPA, and you also voted to increase the meals tax in the city of Beverly. What's going on with that money? How much have you collected, and what is that being used for, particularly the CPA?
Okay. Me and you? Go ahead, Jason.
I didn't vote on the meals tax, so that was before I was on the council. But I did vote on the CPA, and it's being used for a whole host of things. As you know, there are 3 buckets that CPA can be used for: historic preservation, affordable housing, open space, and rec. And those are the 3 buckets that the projects need to fall into. And so this year, and you guys, you can chime in, but renovations to tennis courts, playgrounds. There was a set aside for open space. The Hale Street house, so the Hale house is being completely restored and preserved. This is the 2nd phase of that project. The GAR Hall, we're doing a feasibility study on that. So there are a lot of really exciting things happening with that money. It's about $600,000 or so a year. I think we can spend 10% in each category, and then the rest is up for grabs. So the city and other organizations there's a pretty thorough application process. There's a committee that's been put together by the mayor and the council that does a really, really good job at reviewing the recommendations and making recommendations to the council. We just approved these. Oh, no, we haven't approved these yet. They're still in front of us now.
Full council next week. And
Yes.
even last year, we purchased we authorized some of the money to purchase the old Girl Scout Camp Paradise, where really the only other feasible option for that space would have been residential development, which would have impacted the neighborhood. And now it's an open tract of land that can be used for various recreational uses. And the CPA committee, the CPC, they're pretty good every year about undergoing a rigorous process. And so far, after the first 2 years of funding, they've set money aside. They haven't given it all out every year, so that if something big comes down the line, hopefully from a city agency, there'll be money there to take care of it.
And just to clarify, the voters of Beverly also voted for the CPA back in 2012. I actually served on the CPA ordinance committee. I was a council appointee prior to my time on the council. And really, for me, I did have some concerns about how tax dollars were going to be used, what type of projects were going to be coming forward. And I think that's still a work in progress. They've had 2 years now, and we've had some projects coming forward. I haven't agreed with all of them, but I think in general, the money is going to good use, and I think that's something that will continue to be flushed out over the next few years, and what our priorities are as a city, and how do we use that money to reach those priorities.
And Elliot, you mentioned the meals tax. I was on the council. It was Mayor Cahill's only term on the council. He was president. I didn't vote on it because in my day job, I'm a registered agent that collects the meal tax for the state of Massachusetts. But that the state meals tax is 6.25 with the local option of raising it up to 7%. It passed through the council 5-3, and that money ends up going to the schools to help fund the school budget every year.
So, Matt, what do you think is your big concern?
Yeah, I think my big concern is I think I think we've sort of moved through a period where we were working on a lot of projects that were currently in process, and we've sort of got them to a point where they're sort of close to the finish line. What is the next step? My big concern remains fiscal responsibility, taxpayers. I think there's some affordability issues in the city. We talked a little bit about the CPA. There's a $4,000 full day kindergarten fee. as our senior population continues to age. I think we need to be mindful of the taxpayers and how our tax dollars are being used. And as we continue to pay off the middle school, are there opportunities to take a more fiscally responsible approach and not raise taxes as much as we possibly can on the taxpayer?
Okay, just because there's no room on the table here for Gail doesn't mean she can't ask a question. So, the question is, the City Council voted to establish a Human Rights Committee in Beverly. The committee will be dealing with discrimination, diversity, fairness, etc. Does this open the door to Beverly becoming a sanctuary city?
No.
I was going to say, how do you answer that straightforward and be politically correct?
Who wants to be politically correct? Because what we want is the right answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
We don't.
anything to
I
do
don't
with
care
that.
whether
I
it's
mean, in terms of the
politically
human
correct.
rights,
It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Councilor Rand has been working on this ordinance for a couple of years, and she early on came to me with an earlier draft of it. I had expressed some concerns to her about similar committees that exist in places like Cambridge, where they go out and they investigate, complaints in businesses. And I made it clear to her that I had concerns about that sort of committee coming to Beverly, and she made it very clear to me that wasn't the intent of this, that this was more of an education.
Well, what is the intent of it?
I think it's more of an education to show that Beverly's an inviting community to all, and I supported it based on that.
Do they have any authority on this committee?
There's no adjudicatory.
Don't try.
There's no authority for them to investigate and.
So
from
what
that.
do? They listen to complaints from people, or?
I think they try to create an inviting environment for all.
It's more of an education component. So organizing lectures or having panels or outreach to the community, trying to make the city more inclusive, inviting, welcoming, etc.
When has the city not been?
That's not that. No one's trying to say that we're not.
Was this something that's going to be run from the City Hall or through the school committee or the school department?
No, the members will be appointed by the mayor with confirmation from the city council.
Correct.
And I spoke with Estelle a few times before it came before the city council, and she worked closely with the mayor on it also. My concern was that it was going to have some kind of financial impact, especially to businesses downtown. That component was talked about and taken out. So I think this is more of their goal is to make sure everybody here in Beverly is treated fairly and equally.
Well,
And we do that. We do that as it is now.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of organizations in the city that do that.
What's your big concern for the coming years?
Road construction. I think the next couple of years are going to be very, very difficult with the Route 1A project and Brimble Ave. Brimble Ave has already caused a tremendous amount of stress on the neighbors up there, and the Route 1A project is going to affect not only residents but businesses. And my whole thing is about those projects being managed professionally and efficiently.
Now, this election season has been probably one of the most boring election seasons I've ever seen.
We were waiting
I would
for
agree.
you to pull papers, Elliot.
Is that right?
What, again?
No, Paul, you were asked this question 2 years ago, and whether or not you were in favor of term limits, and you said you were in favor of term limits, but because there's going to be a new mayor, you felt it important to stay on and help with the transition. So one question would be, why are you running this time? And how do all three of you really feel about term limits? Because it seems to me one of the reasons why there's so few people running is because they don't figure they can get elected.
I always said that. Well, I always think the term limits are good on the state and the federal level. I think with this, our positions are more public service than anything else. I'm running again because I really enjoy it. There are projects that started when I first started on the council that are still out there. A joint public safety facility, the waterfront, the middle school. I'm very honored to serve with these two gentlemen. And I think when you say about few people running. My thing is, well, you can say, well, one, we're doing a good job, but two is everybody is so busy that they don't have, busy with their own lives and their own children, that they don't have the time to get involved because time is so precious. Whereas that we've already gone out, run our campaigns, set up our networks. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's a little easier for us to continue what we do.
And I think elections are term limits. Every time you have to appear before the voters,
That's
there's
Charlie
That-
Grimes.
there's a chance that you're not going to get
Charlie
elected.
Grimes,
Charlie
it's John
Grimes.
Tierney, it's
Yeah.
Richard
But
Tassay.
I disagree. If you're not doing a good job, people are going to challenge you, and you're going to have to defend yourself and go before the voters. And I think, for me, I see this as service. I don't know that I'm going to do this forever, but it's a period of time where I want to give back to my community. And I don't know that it's a 2-year, 4-year, 6-year, 8-year commitment. It's going to be as long as I feel like I'm making a difference.
Yeah, without being too, I don't want to be too repetitive. I actually agree with Matt. I think that I think an election every 2 years is, in a way, a term limit. If the voters didn't want us in office, that's their opportunity, and they should exercise that. And I encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. This is going into my 3rd term, which I'm excited about. I think the team we have on this council works really, really well together, and I've really enjoyed the camaraderie and the hard work. I mean, everyone works so hard at it and is so thoughtful at it. I mean, I think we have a really good team. And I can't say how long I'm going to do this for, but I really do enjoy it and enjoy the team that's in place now.
The other thing I would add is to what Paul said. I think at the national and state level, money really comes into play where these people are raising millions and millions of dollars, and it makes it very difficult to beat an incumbent. But at our level, it's really not that prohibitive. You can run a campaign, you can run an aggressive campaign, and if someone isn't doing their job, they're going to be vulnerable.
Well, I think one of the issues that comes down is several years back, changed the charter of the city and went to something called a strong mayor, weak council. So what I would like to understand a little better is how weak is the council? What kind of initiatives can you guys start with?
So you call it weak?
No, it's a good point. Because
Okay,
that's the way
you want to get it? All the years I've watched the city council, I can remember one time where the city council voted down the mayor's request, and that's when they wanted to buy that second street sweeper using the money from
the trash
fee. And they bought it anyway from some other fee. But anyway, I mean, this is one of the, I think, the issues that comes out is what kind of initiative can the city council bring to the table as opposed to waiting for the mayor and the administration to do something? It gets back to the issue of what are you doing there? What good are you doing? You talk about public service. What does that really mean?
I mean, it's funny and Mayor Cahill has been the same way as Mayor Scanlon was. He is a big fan of working out differences and disagreements behind closed doors in his office. He'll take 1 or 2 of us in if we have an issue and go through his project with him before he gets them to the council. At first, they may not hold muster to get 5 or 6 votes, whatever it's necessary, but he's been very good at doing his homework and listening, which is a nice thing to get us to do things. I mean, there are some initiatives that people are in the back of people's minds on the council right now. I know Council Silver is working on something that would give seniors volunteering their time to get a tax break. I know I'm constantly, every 2 years, bringing up the subject of second water meters. I'm just looking for 4 more city councilors to jump on that bandwagon. So there are things that we work on, and ultimately the mayor has to say yay or nay on them.
How many years has it been on that second water meter?
Let's see.
Because
Gotta
there's a
be
lot of people that want that.
Yeah, the 2004. 2004.
Now you understand the frustration of people in government.
Oh, I see it.
Our main goal, our main responsibilities, I think, are, one, we have the authority to cut spending within the budget. I mean, that's the one budgetary role we really have. So we do have legitimate authority there. We're the legislative body, so any law, ordinance that we want or would like to see passed, we can submit and advocate for. I think the third main thing is advocate for our constituents and the residents of Beverly in a whole host of ways, from constituent services to through the
Give me, for
legislature.
instance.
Well, if you're that concerned about the constituents, for instance, on the second water meter thing, that would save the constituents a lot of money. But it would also mean the city of Beverly would lose money. So are you concerned about the constituents, or are you concerned about how much money you can spend?
It's a little more complicated
Yeah.
than that, the second water meters. They do, but there's no excuse why we can't get them done in Beverly, because they have them in Salem, they have them in Peabody, and they have them in Danvers. The thing about the second water meters is the people that don't buy second water meters, you'd have to be responsible for paying for them. And one thing I'm looking into now is whether we can charge a higher rate on the water used by those meters, because we have to make our assessment over at SESD, and the formula right now would mean that people who didn't have that second water meter would pay more for their water and sewer. It's something that Brian Ailes has promised me that he's going to work on after the election.
Just getting back to George's point as well, in addition to the authority granted to us by the charter, as Jason outlined, I think we all have a bully pulpit. We all have a voice and are able to communicate directly with residents. I think social media has been a huge advocate in terms of moving that forward, but any one of us can take a position on any issue and take it right to the voters of Beverly and use that as strength in terms of gaining support for an initiative or a proposal.
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, before we started, time goes by very quickly, and we're almost out of it. So I'll give each one of you 25 seconds to say why people should vote for you instead of leaving it blank.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here. I just say I work hard at it. I think I bring a skill set that's different from anyone else on the council. I have a municipal background. I have extensive experience in city government, my day job. I've run a local nonprofit, and I think those skills really serve the city well, the council well. I think it has the last almost 4 years now, and I think will going forward.
Go ahead,
I think
Paul.
I have the experience necessary to move the city forward over the next 2 years. I enjoy being in a leadership position. I think it's important the fact that I'm in Beverly all day, 24/7. People know where to find me. I truly enjoy the job still. And I think it's important to have a small businessman on the city council to understand the needs of the business community.
Matt?
I would just say it's been an honor to serve as a city councilor in my hometown. I grew up here, I have 3 young kids here, heavily invested in the future. My experience includes working in the governor's office for Charlie Baker. I've worked at the state level and also have private sector experience, with I think adds a unique blend to the council. And really I've been focused on fiscal responsibility, being a voice for the taxpayers, promoting transparency, and will continue to do that as city councilor over the next 2 years.
Well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
I'd say good luck, but you're in anyhow. Let's move forward, have the city move forward in the next 2 years.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to have us in again after the election.
Trust me, I won't be.
Okay? Thought you were retired.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote on Tuesday.